There we are. Okay, so I guess you can hear me and you can see my screen.
Yes.
So all good to go. I will start from where we left the other day. I would say that one of the things that I may have missed out, I'm going to plug that in now. There was a slide which you can see, it's open right now. It's going to talk about some of the stop words that needs to be encapsulated within quotation marks so that they are recognized or they're forced to get recognized. And so we're going to place them inside of the quotation marks. That's all there is to this one. So in this one, you could see that there are these red fonts for the words which you could see. Obviously, you can tell these are all stop words. We have come across them earlier. So in order for us to make sure that they get recognized either as part of the sentence or your search phrase, we'll have to put all of these inside of the quotation marks. So there is this line that is actually pulled from, oh, come on. Sorry, it's a bit jumpy. Let me get back to it right here. But when I run it, how come the, okay. So let's suppose that this is what is to be considered as part of the query, or this line is what is to be matched with your search term you've placed inside of the search box, because it has words like becoming a, which is a stop word, and unless we place the entire statement starting from becoming a and then ends with the word benefits, if it needs to be matched exactly, it needs to be placed inside of the quotation marks, as you could see. And other thing, the notation, for instance, if the question mark for or turning it into a question, we would want the question mark to be understood as not as a statement, but as a question itself. So I'm going to make a little bit of change here. And supposing I write how to become, let's say, a certified internet research specialist, and I want this to appear as a question, or there is this question mark, a notation, which otherwise is a stop word. I need this to be recognized as part of the sentence here. I would certainly would make sure that everything is put inside of the quote so that the question mark is matched, or the entire statement starting from how and ending with benefits and a question mark is matched verbatim as is. Okay. So that's the only thing about this slide. Important is the one that I'm showing you right now, which is where I'm going to try to explain how we can be more creative with the quotation marks. In the first one, I've explained it in the previous lecture, so we were done with example one. And I don't have to repeat it, but there is a slide which would give you a better perspective of how you separate the words, or you separate each of these like stop words or whatever makes it into a formula, by just moving it, giving it a gap. It sort of breaks itself into compartments, or different number of words. So we've done this one. Now in the second example, you can see that we have used within quotes the words bold and beautiful. So this is what we call the anchor words or the subject of your search. And therefore, putting it within quotes means that they have to match exactly as you've written it. So it needs to be accurately phrased and the spelling has to be correct as well. So bold and beautiful, it's a soap opera. If I want this to reveal, let's say, episode or season one, episode six, I could actually write it with 1-6, where one is considered a whole and six is part of it. Somehow, with the dash, it sort of makes it into one statement or one fact or one search term, which is actually interpreted, I wouldn't say mathematically, but it is generalized as if it is one sixth part of one, or it is episode one. I'm sorry, it is season one and episode six. These are just some of the shortcuts that is pretty much pre-programmed, and it is interpreted based on its own wisdom of some sort, and it somehow builds a relationship between what you put next to it, or where bold and beautiful is interpreted as as a famous soap opera, and in relationship to that it is going to give you the season and the episode. So that's somewhat, the reason why we are explaining these things, these small elements, is because a lot of times when you put them in your search queries and you're getting erratic or irrelevant results, or not as you would want to put it in perspective or in relationship to the term like bold and beautiful, for instance, you would have a sense of knowing that it creates a relationship which triggers an interpretation that may appear different if you don't use it in that respect or in that perspective. So just that, there is a kind of a semantic which is a learned semantics of sorts, and it is somewhat intact as inherently um, affecting your search results. So you have to be mindful of this. Similarly, if you had put the same bold and beautiful with relationship again with the short form of writing season and episode, you can also write it 1/6, but without any gaps between the backslash ones or sixes. So together, it is again interpreted as season one, episode six. Sometimes, if you're not getting the result you need for the season and episodes, and somewhat it is overlapping another situation which may not bring you exactly as you please, you may want to emphasize or ensure that 1/6 is actually mandatorily interpreted, or it is forced for the search to make sure that it becomes part of your return results. So I would then put 1-6 or 1/6 within the quotation marks. So literally these two terms are now forced to be present in your search results or on that page you're trying to get. So these are just the examples of, some of the ways you can actually work, with shortcuts. You don't have to put season and episodes and things like that. Similarly, in this example, which is where I'm pointing to, where everything is put inside of the quotation marks, there could be a situation or there could be an instance that you don't get any results, or they could turn up null results. What could be the reason? I think if you look at this logically, you will realize that because everything, including 1/6, is inside of the quotes, it is going to match it as you have written it in the same sequence of how you phrased it. So if the 1/6 is not coming or is followed after the word beautiful, you are then not getting any results back because you're forcing something which does not exist. So the sequence or the statement itself should be such that if you're forcing it, it has to be accurate enough that it can match those pages or it can bring the pages that has it written as is, as you have shown it within the quotation mark. So there is this hazard that's always going to throw you off your searches. So, have to be a little bit mindful in in that respect. Um, in example 3, right now I'm just covering the theoretical. There's so much theoretical part because if you practice it, if you do it on your own, you would realize that whatever is theoretically explained, it works as a basis or it has that uh, kind of a concept, clarifying of concepts, so you can apply it in different situations. So everything is conceptual right now. I'm sorry, just give me a moment. I need to change the temperature a little bit. Okay, there. In example 4, in fact, example 3, let's look at where we have these 3 different um, I would say these search terms. We call search terms because they are set of words and they're sequentially placed as if they're search phrases. But each search phrase is known as a search term because they're within the quotation marks. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 search terms. 3 of these are placed inside of the quotes. One is actually outside, which is without quotation marks. And this is intentionally done. Now, with this scenario of example 3, I could actually copy it and paste it on the notepad to give you an idea of how the search will behave in a situation like this. We have 3 search terms here, all within the quotation marks. So let me just copy this and I will explain it better on the notepad. So let's suppose this is example 2. Now, this search term, which is market research report versus market research industry report and market research demand, all 3 have to mandatorily or they have to uh, appear in your search results or be part. All 3 of these have to be part of those pages which gets returned. Um, However, the word report is discretionary or it is left outside of the quotes only because we allow for the search engine to replace it or we are not sure of it, or they could be dropped totally. So it is like I said, it's more like a choice for the search. However, there is one issue with these 3 terms inside of the quotes. Usually we don't get all 3 terms on a single page because they more or less have the same meaning or slightly different, but normally they don't logically exist on the same page. Like it could be either market research report or market research industry report or market research demand. So kind of conflicting with each other in the sense that because they're forced, and if they all 3 of them are not found on the pages, you will again get null results. So the approach or the better way will be to refine this search query and say in 2.1, I will attempt to make it even a better search query. first thing I will do is look at the common words, like market research is there, industry report, and demand. So report is repeated. So I would definitely not want the word report to be part of this. I can remove it easily. Market research, I don't have to use it many times. So I'm going to get rid of the second, in the second instance of quotation marks, I have removed market research because it is redundant or repeated. Now I've got an industry report. And in the third one, again, market research, I can get rid of. And I can make it appear like this. Okay. So always, in order for us to be more accurate with writing our search queries, we don't want to make it too long or too lethargic or repetitive in words. So the best approach is to really get rid of something that is repeated. I would attempt to get a better results by, a process of elimination. Here I have used industry report and demand. All three of these words, I've left it open. But supposing to me, with relationship to market research, what is really important as a choice between these three words is the word, let's say, report. So I'm going to put the word report within the quotation marks, even though I've not attached it with market research or it's not a continuation with market research. I can also do it um, another way, and I could just write it like this also. But then between 2.1 and 2.2, there is a bit of a dilemma, I would say. Supposing market research report, all three words together don't exist, or somehow you are not getting the correct results, or you're getting less results compared to 2.1, is because there is this word report, which is not necessarily connected or is attached to these two words, market research, or it is not making a statement that should exist with the same sequence of how words are placed inside of the quotes. So between 2.1 and 2.2, you could see that you get less results if you are using 2.2, and you will get far more results if you're using 2.1. You can get even more results if I made a third query appear like this. A lot more results. Okay. So the quotation marks do good job when you start moving them and you start putting some words in quotes, some words out of the quotes. But because it is a process of refining or it's fine tuning or playing with the words, sometimes making them loose enough that the search would be given a choice. Other times you want to restrict it. It all depends on, your search outcome. If you look at your SERPs and you feel that you need to open up some of the words or rephrase something, put them within the quotations, you can keep doing it using quotation marks as a demarcation or as an enforcer, or as making words or some keywords more important than others, or others that you can live without or still be able to get good enough results. So let's just keep it at this right now and follow it as I have explained. I think you would do a better job of using quotation marks with this concept, and always you can substitute and make your queries even more powerful. Next is going back to our examples. There are a few more we are going to run. I'm going to look at example 4. In example 4, we have 5 different ways in which we have written something inside in the query box, and we have only used quotation marks to get the job done. We haven't used any other operator. There's just no other booleans you could notice. Just with the quotation marks, we are getting or moving quotation marks around and placing them or enclosing different combination of words. We are getting results that are varied and basically quite distinct from each other in terms of how many results got returned. So in the first instance, first of all, what is the objective of this query? You could see that we have used the word Steve Jobs and we have used important life lessons. It seems that it is a continuation of a whole sentence that needs to be matched, or we are asking the search to find everything that has to do with any of these words or their combinations. So Steve Jobs' important life lessons gave us about 3,860,000 results, way too many for us. But the idea behind it was that we are looking for a speech that is better known with the 3 words like important life lessons. This is a speech that Steve Jobs gave in Stanford at some point way back, but because it was given the name as, or it is better known to have to be uh, to be known with 3 words of important life lessons. This 3 words in itself is separate from the word Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs is a name and important life lessons is is a caption or a statement expressing the name of the speech. So without quotation marks, a lot more results. In the second instance, we try to refine it, make it better. And for that reason, we separated the word Steve Jobs and put important life lessons intact as if it is separated from the word Steve Jobs, and making the statement or caption to appear as a subject with relationship to Steve Jobs. We got 170,000 results. Then in the third one, we got everything put inside of the quotes. Steve Jobs' important life lessons, as if it is a continuation, verbatim statement needs to be matched as is. Since everything is inside of the quotes, we got only 5 results. At times, you won't even get any results, even if you have written it the right way, except that if it is not found somewhere to be exactly how you have stated it with the sequence of the words you have used inside of the quotes, you would probably not be getting any results or very few results. Okay. A lot of times I see that students tend to have this um, approach where they feel that the less number of results that show up means that the query is more focused and it is more filtered. But in the case of how I would look at it as a researcher, I wouldn't think that that is the ideal situation, or if less or the least number of results is validating your mm, focused research results. It just depends on the quality of results. I'd say that what turns up, you'll have to vet it carefully to know if it is relevant enough or if the information is reliable. So for those 2 reasons, I would say that number is not the criteria. As you would see in 4, we have done a better job of stating the same search or putting them in the sequence and in the number of words we have placed in query 4. We have separated Steve Jobs as if it is, it is a name or a separate kind of a set of words which are to be distinguished between the name and the heading, which is important life lessons. So putting this in quotes, putting Steve Jobs in quotes, and in between adding, let's call it a tail word, a word that we are not sure of, but we know it has a contextual relationship, may not be precise to be interpreted by the search, but it would have a bearing in what the outcome might be, which is more favorable. So speech, and not putting it within quotations. So not to force it, I got about 51,700 results. And looking at the quality of it to compare it with the previous searches, 1, 2, and 3, the quality of the search number 4 was far better, and there was 51,700 results. Okay. In the last instance, we've used Steve Jobs' speech, important life lessons, but not putting Steve Jobs within quotes. So what might happen if we don't put Steve Jobs together within quotes, and assuming, see, right now, the search engine sort of have learned from its experience that Steve and Jobs together is attributed to or is considered to be individualized for that specific famous person, Steve Jobs of Apple computers. And therefore, there is no problem for it to understand it or give priority for it to consider these two for that same person. However, if it was something else, and if Steve Jobs wasn't famous, assuming uh, the word jobs, if we didn't put Steve and Jobs together within quotes, the word jobs would be treated as separate and has nothing to do with Steve or Steven. So that, just giving you an idea, that that could create a problem. So you have to be mindful about that. Anyway, when we ran it the way that's been written right here, we got slightly more results. Um, it may have dissociated the word jobs from the word Steve or Steven. So that could be the reason why we've got 187,000 results. A lot of them were irrelevant, and that is also a nuisance when you're dealing with Google. So for us to be careful about how we use or replace or place the quotation marks is important, as shown in the example 4. In example 5, we are forcing something which otherwise the search engine does not usually consider a question of sorts. There could be something that you're asking, what is, where is, and so on. And then you're putting the question mark at the end to ensure that it's understood as a question. But because question mark is one of those notations that are considered stop marks, they could be ignored, or part of your wordings that you're using, say what, where, and when, can be dropped totally. So that is the cause of which allows for us to force something like question mark to be included or become part of your query. So supposing the subject matter is about internet research, and we want to enforce a question mark to be present in the statement or any of the content on that page with these two words, and wherever possible, there should be a match to a question mark, which is put inside of the code. So this is one attempt in A, this is one attempt to make it appear alongside a question mark with these two words intact. In the second one, we did the same thing, except internet research put it within the quotation, and the question mark also plays there. Here we are taking a chance because with the question mark not being part of the um, part of of a question itself, but rather a subject is present, then the two words could be anywhere, and it may not be a question, or it may not be something that you intend to get back as as having the the query of some to find something about internet research, but it is a chance you have to take. In the C, it's just telling you how you can use or pose a question in your search queries, which is otherwise is a problem to understand. So that's what is intended here in A, B, C, and D. In C, we've got the word what, and then we put internet research with the question mark and the quotation mark. Uh, the problem here is that your question or anything to do with internet may not end with the question mark, or there could be more words between the question mark and that what follows after research. And so again, it's like a shot in the dark. In the third instance, what we have done is we have used three words, what, where, how, and given it an or command, which we are going to come to later on, but a vertical bar replaces something in Boolean we call or as a choice. And here, what we are asking the search to do is find what, where, or how. Any of these three would suffice. And then, in addition to that, see if internet research and question mark would appear somewhere that would bring you more detailed results on what internet research is, or anything that has to do with internet research with a question mark in there. So this is a dilemma, this is a problem, and this obviously this is one of the ways that you can pose it as a question. However, because these are just generalizing or coming up with some of the ways that you can use or optimize use of quotation marks. You may experiment with it, try a few queries on your own, build it for your self-satisfaction, or in cases of finding something that you truly really look for, and keep these in mind. That's where we are going to, uh, finish up a little bit on how to use quotation marks. There are few slides we have covered, like this one we have done the previous session. Next thing is the behavior or the preference or some of the variations of how the search engine would react to using the quotation marks within the search terms. This is the ABC we have covered. So let me just push it a little bit further. And this is where I'm going to get to. Now, Google removes usefulness of Boolean A and D or a plus sign. I don't know if you learned it ever on the internet while you're looking for, how the searches or how the Google articles recommend you're doing internet searches. But to our knowledge, the Google search no longer suggests to use A and D or a plus sign. So, it's not like it is not used or it is irrelevant. However, though the plus sign notation is totally eliminated, so you can forget about that. The A and D is not preferred anymore, or it is not encouraged, only because Google took a position saying that the quotation marks alone would suffice and you don't basically need A and D, because A and D is a conjoiner or it is an enforcer of something to be recognized as mandatory instructions for matching those search terms inside of the quotes. And A and D does the same thing. So kind of, it's in situation where they don't mention it much. And even if you go to Google recommended search operators, they don't mention A and D at all or the plus sign. So that is one indication that they don't recommend it. However, A and D works, and there are occasions when we necessarily need to use A and D instead of quotation marks, and that will come later when we are doing advanced search queries. You would see the utility of it. But right now, let's look at how A and D is replaced by quotation marks to get our fundamentals cleared up, and also look at the behavior or some of the ways where the algorithms are tweaked and slightly changed to or kind of become more customized, and therefore not acting exactly as the command is intended or as the Boolean command is intended. So that part we'll be covering shortly. I'm going to take a short break right now, and I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Okay, I'm back. I think we can continue now. I'm sure you can hear me and you can see my screen. I have to say it every single time because on occasions we have had situations, if we didn't check and something bad happens, we do get in trouble. So just to get a nod from any one of you.
This is Brad. I'm
Okay.
present.
Okay, thanks, Brad. And you can see my screen, obviously. Okay,
Yes.
thank you for that. Thank you, Tristan. All good to go. All right. So let's keep it rolling. All right. Another concept coming up. This is kind of a behavioral issue of the search engines. Now, here I'm going to start with explaining some of the behavior which is not as you expect. For instance, writing a statement like this and using A and D command. For now, just think of A and D as if it is working just exactly as it would with the quotation marks, or it is something that is attaching itself to whatever is on either side of it. So this is the typically how the Boolean operators work. They try to club together a statement or keywords that are in its closest vicinity on either side of it, on both sides of it. So supposing there was this term textual semantics and lexical semantics, these two terms, and this is what people do normally. Those novices that don't know how to use it properly, they would use booleans similar to as I'm explaining. So writing textual semantics and lexical semantics. Um, Starting with the one that is highlighted, let's suppose there is this word textual, which is going to bring you results that matches part of the word on any of the documents that it is bringing back, meaning that it would look at the part of the word, which is ideally, it should be just textual, but it is like pulling word like contextual, only because the last 6 or 7 of these alphabets are somewhat um, simulating exactly the word textual as part of the whole, which means it is going to match the partial words as well. So what's going to happen is, first of all, it is going to match it with the contextual instead of textual. We are not getting to A and D yet. We'll get to it a little bit later. So that's the first thing. What's next is that it would look for the word semantics and the word lexical as if they are to be combined together because they are in its closest vicinity, meaning that semantics lexical is what's going to be the outcome. So it would look for the word semantics and the word lexical as a priority, or would have precedence over everything else that is on its extremities like textual or semantics. So I guess it's a repeat, but let's suppose I'm talking about this semantics and this lexical. These two would be the priority. Next, if you look at the the combinations in which it is going to look for the words, you could see this one. You could see documents that have words like lexical semantics, like this one over here, textual semantics, text semantics, it is going to break it and look for the word text also, and look for text semantics, textual as a single word, or lexical or semantic. So kind of uncontrolled behavior is what's going to be exhibited. Except that in this one, two concepts I was wanted to explain. One is matching the partial word, and the second is the closest ones are going to have a priority or more of a favored returned results, because both words lexical and semantics are on either side of A and D, or closest. Let's look at the next instance where we have now enclosed the word textual semantics as a single search term and added the word lexical semantic, as if both of these have to be present or are mandatorily have to be part of those pages, and they can be found anywhere on those pages. Not that they have to be sequential, but the A and D is actually just saying that both have to be present. That's all. And further to this, um, you could see that if I just replace the A and D, or just ignore the A and D, would it do the same or return almost the same number of results? See, with the difference, as you could see, between 560 results in the first, in the second one, and 548 in the second one, is not in the third one, is not a whole lot of difference in numbers. So it is you to assume that they're more or less the same results. Okay. And the behavior can be easily looked at, and you could see that at least in the first few pages you'll get almost exactly the same results. The idea here is to see if we just let go of or ignore A and D, remove it totally, would it still bring the same results? Yes, they do bring the same results. Why? Because textual semantics is not only supposed to be intact as a search phrase because they're in quotes, but they're forced presence as well, similar to using A and D. And likewise, the lexical semantics is doing the same thing. It is enforced and it is to remain intact as it is phrased inside of the quotes. So logically, they could be easily replaced, meaning you don't necessarily have to use A and D. So this is just to bring out the reason why search engine like Google is not encouraging to use A and D, but it is used extensively in advanced stages, and there is a reason for it. But for now, this would do. And see what's going to happen with these results. You would see both of these terms are actually mandatorily present the same way using A and D when you look at the search results. So we're going to now, this is just a relationship kind of thing. It is just for your knowledge only. It's not anything that is spectacular or anything that is going to give you something very new. Just some one way of explaining that there is a relationship always between two words, we can say, or two search terms like X and Y. So if we use X and Y, or X within quotes or Y within quotes, what it is doing is that it is creating a relationship of X of Y, the impact of X on Y, X similar to Y, or X inside of Y. Um, it's like I said, it's for your information only, but what it is just giving you is that there is a relationship always between two of these. When you use them as separate terms, they should have a relationship with one another, and this is how it is explained. This is how I'm going to attempt to try to explain some of the ways in which A and D or a plus sign is replaced. I'll have to roll back a little just to get back to when I was explaining the gaps and I was explaining how the words are separated. Going back to this one as an example. So let's take example one. You know that it is two different terms, basically two, you could say two terms inside of the quotes, whereas there is a gap of a single character in between to separate these two. This gap is assumed to be a plus sign. So I'm making this statement only not because there it is enclosed and within quotes, but because anytime you have more than a few number of words, any of those gaps in between those words or those search terms are assumed to be attached to each other as if there is a plus sign. But that plus sign is not enforced. It is assumed to be a preference, okay, but not an enforcement. So if I come back to this example, which is what is going to explain to you how the quotation mark replaces A and D, I'm going to equate these three words, internet research specialist, to somewhat simulate an algebraic expression which would eventually eliminate the plus sign. So let's look at internet research specialist, and there is a gap of a single character. This is assumed to be a plus sign, meaning that it would first attempt to look for all these three in the same sequence, but not as a mandatory return, but only as something it is supposed to do in the first instance. So assume plus sign. Then I bring the same statement back here, internet plus, and by the way, don't take it literally where you have to put the plus signs to do your searches. This is to conceptualize and to give you a way into assuming that how A and D is getting replaced slowly with the quotes. So let's take in B all three of them with an assumed plus, and obviously plus sign is replaced by A and D. So I have put A and D in between all three of them as if it is actually centered to add whatever is on either side of it. So internet plus research plus specialist, all three of them with the A and D. Now, if I bring A and D back here and replace A and D with using quotation marks for all three of these words, what is happening here is that it is simulating exactly, because there's an equal to sign, which means it's the same. So if I put all three of them within quotes, again, it is replacing A and D. It enforces terms, but not in guaranteed sequence in phrase. So the differentiator is that with A and D, all three terms are not to be considered as maintaining a sequence of three to remain intact and to be matched with three words together as internet research specialist, but rather presence of all three on those pages. And then I'm going to bring it back here and give you the same example of what I just explained by looking at all three of these. And then it is, you could see it is not equal to all three of words put inside of the quotes. And you know that because I explained it with the previous example, that was this one. Okay. If you recall. And in E, it is saying internet research specialist within quotes is not equal to internet A&D research A&D specialist. it is how the D and E are similar, where not equal to is telling you or clarifying the concept even better. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about the OR operator. I think we've done quite a bit on the quotation marks. Now I want to get to OR operator, which is the second one in line. And then there is the third one, which is NOT, or something which we call eliminator, something that takes out the negative words, anything we want excluded. So that's how we're going to proceed. This one is about OR. And look and read carefully. Lot of times we assume that OR is used to give a choice between two search terms that fall on both sides of OR, where the Boolean OR is a choice of finding or looking for either of the terms that are on both sides of OR. So it is kind of a choice of selecting one. However, if you read carefully, you find that there is a slight twist to it, which is an added feature to using OR. By the way, OR can also be replaced by a vertical bar, works just the same. Somehow in my searches, I prefer using notations versus the words and Boolean specifically, because I find that it is somewhat brings more accuracy, or I shouldn't say that because it's not something that I can prove, but that's my personal preference. So I use notation instead. And you would find in the book, I have used the notation marks more often in the examples or illustrations versus using the OR, NOTs, or ANDs. So that's just my personal preferences. And so I would recommend it, but I wouldn't say that I can make a statement or affirmative statement of whether one is better than another. So at least one search term is required. Okay, that's fine. More than one, or all can be returned. Okay, so this is how it is defined. And it has a meaning that goes deeper, where it is no longer just a choice, because you could see the end you read, or all can be returned, meaning that both terms, even though you think of it as a choice or as a mandatory choice, but rather the search would think of it as if first it is going to try to find one of them, and if not, it is going to bring both. Or what could be the default action? What could be the first instance, whether it is going to treat it as a choice with using or think of it as attempting to return both terms. So what would be the preference? That's what I'm going to explain. So let's suppose we have pie or pudding here, two simple words. What will happen as a default action is that search is going to look for both of these words to be present in those pages, as if it is its preference, or it is something that it would rather do first. So technically, it is going to apply pie and pudding. You understand? Then the second instance, it is going to look for one of the two. Therefore, first attempt, find both. If not find both, find at least one out of the two. So technically it works as A and D, and then it works as OR. So this is the default action of using OR. And of course, it thinks that whenever you are using OR command, you are actually putting somewhat similar terms or some ideas which have relationship with one another in such a way that one can replace the other. Okay, so that is the logic. And if it can find both, better. If not, that's where it is going to look for one choice, because it thinks that it is replaceable, or you would find it satisfactory with both terms. Okay, this concept, again, it's not important really. It's just pretty much something which is logically just giving a relationship: x and or y, impact of x with y, x similar to y, or x within y. So you keep that concept. Not that it is going to change any of the behavior, or it's just for your information. So I'm going to skip it quickly. Let's get to the real illustrations. Now, with the OR situation, there could be many ways in which OR would work. And all the time we have to look of OR's operation along with A and D, for instance. Now I'm using A and D intentionally because, like I said, it's not like A and D is non-functional. Besides, it would work alongside OR all the time. And a lot of time, certain terms we want to be attached to others, which where the others could be a choice. One can be a constants, other could be variables. And if we sort of translate it algebraically, we look at an occasion, look at the, um, uh, I guess, equation. Okay, let's call it an equation for now. So let's suppose we have the word how to. We have put it in within quotes because these are stop words. And then we use A and D. And supposing there was after A and D, there is the word draw or paint. How would it be treated by the search? Now, where I have put them within the quotation marks, these are just to give you a kind of, I mean, it's not necessary for me to put the parenthesis or enclose it inside of parenthesis. Actually, parentheses will not even exist. You won't even use it because they are not entertained by search engine like Google. However, Bing does use parentheses, or it wouldn't ignore it and acknowledge it. So if I'm explaining it in terms of how Google is going to interpret it, I would say that the parentheses would not exist, but we have to imagine them just for explaining. Ideally, when we write the query, this is how we'll be writing it. As you could see that I have actually, I'll try to run the slide. So this says it's algebraic expression. That's why we've used parentheses. What parentheses is doing is pairing or making it uh, to be trying to interpret it as if it is assumed to have parentheses for the two terms like draw and paint to be resolved first. Remember, when you're doing algebraic expressions, you want to resolve everything within the parentheses first. And then when it gets resolved, or one of the terms are found to be more prevalent or has precedence over another and easy to get, it's going to make that choice first. And then it is going to attach to something that is outside of the parenthesis. So this is how we do our algebra. And that is the reason why it is shown like this, when in reality, you won't be doing it with the parentheses. Rather, it is going to come as you can see right here. Now, with the OR, we and A and D, what has happened is that draw or paint would be resolved first, and then it would attach to the term how to inside of the quotes. And this how to is a primary core keywords or mandatory to be present and therefore are simulating something like A and D. Whereas going back to where we have replaced A and D with the quotation marks, and so we have done in the second instance. It's not numbered. I'm sorry about that, but you could see my cursor in the second one. You can also observe that A and D is no longer required because how to is within quotes, and then how to gets attached to either draw or paint as a choice. So what will happen is that this will get resolved first and then attached to the term that is outside or in the extremities or the outside of its closest vicinity. The action of OR, just like A and D, as I have explained, with any of the booleans you use, it is going to attempt to resolve what is a priority, and the priority being the closest terms on either side of it. So that's how it is reacting. So it will be either how to draw or how to paint, or it could be both. So it can find pages that has how to draw and how to paint uh, present in the search pages, um, or it can make a choice to find either of these two. So there would be and first try to find both. If not, then find at least one of these two, how to paint or how to draw. That's the two. Okay. All right. Now, just because there is no recognition of parenthesis to enclose or pair something, this is a situation which sort of brings out an uncontrolled or kind of a, um, I guess, somewhat erratic behavior when you're using OR. This is one example showing you what would be the reaction or the outcome. Generally, when we use vacation and London, and by the way, you can always replace A and D by or remove A and D and put vacation and London separate. But with the OR, it's just telling you that with the red arrow that it would resolve these two first and then add to the word vacation, nothing more to it. So in a sense of how we have to phrase it or put it in the search box, we'll do vacation within quotes as an anchor word or as a primary word, and London or Sofia as a choice. So whenever we are using OR, we have to be using something with relationship to getting a choice resolved first and then attaching it to the primary keyword. These are some of the examples that we have used with OR, and there are several of them. In the first example, for instance, let's see. How to draw or paint, we have done this example. What is it going to do? First, it's going to find how to draw or how to paint as, both of these are supposed to be mandatory or for it to find as a preference. If not, then it is going to resolve draw and paint first and then attach to how to. We have done this one. Then supposing we have term in the second one, we have term primal paleo recipes. Paleo recipes could be two words, and primal and paleo could be a choice. You would see how it's going to work. First, it's going to try to find all of these words, which means OR is going to act as A and D first and try to find primal, paleo, and recipes. If not, then it is going to go and look for a combination, uh, primarily looking for primal and paleo as a choice, or these two together first, or primal recipes, or primal can attach to recipes, or paleo and recipes can join together. So this behavior is not as controlled as you would have imagined. So whenever we are using OR, it is a good idea to use it with the quotation marks as a choice between two variables rather than having several variables. At times that could be, um, that could be a decision that you have to make. Sausage, biscuits, and cheese sausage, easy to get, not a problem. Recipes, gravy, sausage, biscuit. So if you have all of these words on the left of it, let's say three words, it is going to look for sausage and biscuit first, resolve that, attach it with gravy, or recipes with biscuits, or gravy with sausage. Again, the behavior starts to be out of control. So the more controlled behavior is shown in example 5. If you have to use OR, then use it between two variables rather than having several variables, so that if one term needs to be attached, which is a constant, with the variables, they have to be, on the right hand side with ORs, and there could be several instances of OR that you can add, like in example 6. But what will happen is one of these will get attached to paleo, uh, and so basically it's just an exercise for you to look at different ways in which OR can operate. You can use paleo recipes and sausage, for instance, in the last one. So you've got two constants and these two variables. But what happens if you put sausage within quotes and then you what is that going to bring back to you? Because both of these are constants. And when you put the quotation marks in closed and put an or next to it, you are kind of overlapping the concept of choice with the constant, which becomes a mandatory return. So if you're going to put the term sausage within quotes, it invariably is going to use sausage as an anchor word and paleo as an anchor word, and then look for what needs to be resolved between cheese and biscuit. So this is where it is going to start to deviate from how the OR is to be interpreted. Good idea not to put the word sausage within quotes in situation like this. If you don't want sausage to be a constant and rather make it a choice, which is what you are getting to when you put after the sausage in quotes, the vertical bar of OR. Okay. Okay. So here is another important slide. So if you have more than two search terms that you put alongside OR, what could be the situation? Like this one is slightly more complicated with the use of OR, and you could see how it is separated with ORs. There are literally one, two, three, four four search terms and at least three ORs, which is more than one ORs in the same sort of search. So basically four terms and none of these are grouped. So they are playing with each other to have a presence as if any of these would suffice or any combination of these. In the first one, you could see that internet and online is a choice. Then right next to it, there's market research, which is within quotes. You've got one, two, three terms within quotation marks. So what is going to happen? The reason why we have used quotation marks here is to group these two words. And therefore, these three of are making it into a search term. And that's why we've used ORs. Yet with the OR command in between, it is going to look for either internet market research, or online can be combined with market study, or online can combine with market research, and so it continues. So it becomes kind of a one single array of search terms that are going to play against each other or with each other. How are we going to make it more controlled? With ORs. In the second instance, you could see that we can start to group them. How are we supposed to group them? Uh, if I want to separate market research, market study, and market demand as one group versus another group of internet and online, I could probably break it in this way. And this is where I would use A and D command, because here A and D can work better to separate certain segments of OR instances into groups. So we have, with A and D command, what we have achieved is that we have separated it into two groups, literally. So anything that is after A and D with 1, 2, and 3 variables or 3 search terms against OR as a choice is a second group, and internet and online can be one group. So this will be getting resolved first and then attaching to whatever gets resolved on the other side, which is resolving between these 3 search terms in the second group. Okay. Now, in the example number 2, coming back to example number 2, you could see that what A and D creates, apart from separating it into groups, is one more, you could say, a drawback, which is that the word online, because it is closest to A and D, and the other search term market research on the right hand side, they have a tendency to combine with each other as a priority. So this could be happening, and this could be one of the drawbacks. But anyway, this is the best that you can do when you want to separate it into groups, because you cannot put these groups within parentheses to separate them. Like internet with OR and online, if I put it within parentheses, I could easily make it into a group. That is mathematically speaking or algebraically speaking. Similarly, I could have grouped market research or market and all 3 of these terms, putting them within parentheses to separate them as 2 different groups. But because Google wouldn't allow it, then the best we could do is A and D. Similarly, in order for us to replace A and D in the same way as it is used in example 2, I could just put the word online within quotation marks as well. So to give priority of attaching online with market research, if that is what is intended, and everything else could be secondary, like internet connecting with marketing study, or online connecting with market demand. If we want to do it like that. Yeah. So things do get complicated when you're using OR, because it is not as controlled as you think. That is the idea that we are trying to express here. There is no way that we can determine the results as, as if it is exactly to be returned as we please, but rather it is another kind of a flexibility that you're throwing at the search engine. Now, in the fourth instance, we can also make it like how it is presented here. We have added or replaced A and D, or these quotation or quoted online, by putting the OR command in between online and market research. So now you will get even more results. Here, each and every term is playing with each other to combine itself or to make it appear as if it is got enough flexibility that any of these are acceptable. So 1, 2, 3, 4, now they have become 5 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these are going to now start to act as if they have a choice to connect with each other as it pleases. So the better way or a more controlled way is 2 and 3. Um, Number 4 is more erratic and very hard to control. The only way that we separate it into groups is using AND command. So that is when we are talking about OR to combine with or to be split into groups so that each group can function separately and resolve. This is more of the same, so I'm just going to break out of this. Okay, so now with OR command, there is another scenario that I will discuss today that has to do with when we are putting those and this is just for the concept and to understand the placement of the keywords and search terms that would suffice or would have somewhat a similar relationship, yet they can be switched on how they are placed on the left side of it or the right side of it. So supposing if internet or research are the two terms and they are placed, as you could see right here, where internet is the first one on the left hand side versus the word research on the right hand side. And then we compare it by switching the terms and look at the search results that are somewhat different. When we use, let's say, instead of internet or reversing the word, so research or internet, would it give different results? The answer is yes, they would give different results. And there is a behavior which is somewhat which needs to be understood and to get a sense of your choices of which place you're going to use the word either on the left of it or the right. What happens with internet or research when you use it like this? The first instance is it is going to try to combine these two, because remember, or between two choices, first it defaults to A and D as if both needs uh, to be available in the or to be matched. So it is going to look for internet and research as a priority. And in the second one, it is going to look for research and internet as if these two, when combined, would give a result that has more of research internet as two words together. So just because the reverse of how you have phrased it or you've placed it on which side of OR, it would intend its first intention is to combine left whatever is on the left of it with what is on the right of it as if it is one phrase, and it works in the reverse direction in the second instance. So that could be that is what could be one of the reasons why the results might be slightly different. Another way of explaining it is shown here, and this is measuring what deviations or how the variances and in terms of number of results come about. So let's suppose in internet or research situation, we want to look at what the results are because we don't know the algorithm. So we look and map or reverse engineer the outcome. And this is exactly how we are trying to explain it in a similar sense in how we interpret it based on what the outcome was. So when we did internet or research, look what we got. We got results that invariably short terms like internet research together, internet research, internet research, internet research. See this? Internet research, internet research. And if we look at what the results were when we used research or internet in the reverse order, where the results, because research and internet don't usually gel together, or they are um, linguistically, or you could say in how it is used mostly, research is separate and internet is separate, in the sense that internet research usually comes together, where research and internet generally are part of the some other phrase, or they are separate somewhere, stated on in the content pages, but not in the same sequence. So you could see internet here, research here, not the same as internet research combined. See this? This is exercise for students to look at different ways in which AND and OR is used and observe what comes out and try to connect it. So because it is kind of a home assignment and it is actually held inside of these slides, I haven't put them as any kind of homework because I know everybody is busy. It's just stated as examples for you to refer to and practice, or generally see how OR and AND work together. In example 3, which is sample queries for using 2 instances of OR with 3 search terms, we also will look at the behavior of which of these terms usually are more prevalent and appear um, invariably in higher number of search results uh, compared to uh, to uh, compared to one another. So the ones that are in blue color, you could see that in search results, market research is more common as 2 words together as a search phrase. The second priority is industry research. Third is marketing study, because all of these three we have used with OR as a choice. So when given a choice, the OR would bring results that in its own wisdom and its own algorithmic sense would think that certain words are more frequent and more popular, and therefore are given priority in your return results. Okay. So this is the last thing we have to talk about on OR. Okay. So NOT or a minus sign. That's the last one we are going to use. Did you know that Google does not recognize NOT as a Boolean operator if it is worded as shown here with NOT in capital letters? Apparently, it is supposed to be, or apparently, a Boolean operator that should be functional in the same way as AND or OR, but it doesn't do it the way it's supposed to be, only because those algorithms uh, are not recognizing it at all, as if NOT is non-existent in Boolean. Yet in this situation, the minus sign is recognized, or a notation of a minus sign is recognized as a replacement of NOT, and it would work just the same as NOT is intended from the Boolean perspective. So notation is going to replace NOT. And how we are going to use the notation, this is what is shown here. Ideally, NOT, if it is to function the same as A and D, it should have be written as shown in example 1. This is how it should be, right? But one of the things about NOT that is peculiar and differentiates its function from using A and D or OR is that NOT, if you put it in between two terms, or assuming that NOT was fully functional, the uh, the intention of NOT would be to treat any term that is on the right hand side of it to be excluded from return results. So it is only the right hand side of NOT in writing searches um, using it as an eliminator of some terms would only work for anything that is on the right hand side of it, and nothing on the left will be impacted. So if it is peach NOT peach pie, it would only eliminate peach pie and include peach in your search results. This is ideal behavior. However, because NOT would not work in searches with the uh, with Google, you would use a minus sign as shown in example 2. And this minus notation does not exactly replace NOT in the same location as NOT itself as a word would, meaning that the minus will have to hug or be attached to the term next to it, which is without any gaps in between the minus sign and the term, which would be considered as excluded. So if we were doing peach minus peach pie, for instance, there is one element that needs to be understood besides the word peach to be excluded. The word pie has to be inclusive of the word peach, uh, because peach pie is what needs to be excluded. Otherwise, we are negating uh, or basically contradicting the word peach to be present, whereas once again the word peach, the second instance, should be excluded. So you will get null results. So if we want peach pie as a search term to be excluded, we have to put both of these within the quotation marks. And for that reason, I would put it correctly, I guess, in 3. Let's assume 3 is where we are going to eliminate peach pie. So if it is a peach ice cream as 3 words, and then we don't want peach pie to be part of it, and so what we do is we put peach pie within the quotation as if it is one search term, and put the minus sign right next to it without any gaps between where the quotation mark starts, just so that the term itself is to be excluded, uh, and um, and not just the word peach. So both of these are placed inside of quotes, and therefore a minus sign would ensure that you get results with peach ice cream and exclude the peach pie. Okay. So it's very simple idea, or it's a simple way of getting rid of certain search terms, and nothing complex about it. It's just the fundamentals. But when we use it in a more creative way, um, we are definitely going to leverage this as. And by the way, this is the only notation or only Boolean um, function that allows us to refine search by excluding certain words from coming back over and over again. So it is it is filtering out things, and it is the only notation that is going to help us to get to exactly what we need. Um, and 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 it has a behavior which helps us um, to get rid of false positive situation, meaning that you could write certain terms or certain search phrases which would mean the same, except that it would also have a meaning other than what was intended. So they could have 2 or 3 meaning, and that happens when we look at some of the examples. You will see that the search engine may get confused because it would mean the same thing even if you write it in 10 different ways. The outcome would be confused with um, giving it a meaning, or for it to have a double meaning. And for that reason, we have to get rid of some of the words or some of the ways in which we can eliminate that. So we have to use minus sign extensively to bring it to the more focused results. That's relationship we don't need. Okay. So this is just one revision that is going to conclude what we have learned so far on Boolean. Just few of these slides, and then we will talk about parenthesis a little bit to see what could be the solution for um, figuring out between groups to know which of these groups can be a choice. So that is what we are going to see in next few slides. We still have some time, but let's see if we have enough time to complete that. I'll try. If not, then I'll continue. And then in the next session, we will be doing some queries. We'll be running it in the browser. And with the concepts that you've learned so far, I'd imagine that there could be some searches that you probably want, you know, done on your own and then bring it to the class if possible. If not, then I'll just continue with some of the standard examples we run every time. That's what's going to happen. So it's up to you. Anyway, I'm going to look at this one to see if we can recap what we have learned so far. So finch or sparrow and exotic. So these are some of the variations of what we have done or learned. All I'm trying to do here is to explain how we are going to replace the OR to C with the notations that is going to replace them, where to place, how they are placed in a search query, because placement is also very important. We just want to make sure that we mind the gaps, the way in which it replaces some of the textual commands of booleans. So that's what we are going to talk about. So let's suppose we have OR and AND here. We can replace finch or arrow with the vertical bar as shown with the gap of a single character. It has to have a gap between what is on the left and right of it and the bar itself. We can replace A and D by putting the word exotic within quotation marks. As you can see here, A and D, finch and exotic, sparrow, and that's very simple right here. That's it. It's just for observation only. And over here, you can see that we have put a minus sign right next to the word native instead of NOT. Okay. How about parentheses? I don't know why, if you look at what is on the internet these days, and people like to write a lot about, using advanced operators and specifically Google or operational, queries, uh, and they misguide or misinform, or at least maybe they're not aware of it. But the queries I have seen, or some of the expressions of search queries, include parentheses, and Google has exclusively, and in fact has actually informed or announced long time ago, maybe almost 3 years now, that you don't use parentheses in your search queries because it does not work. So I don't know why I still see them, but let's just give you an example here, and I think it will better illustrate it. Now, supposing we have two groups, these are veggies and fruits, where the veggies are pumpkin and carrot. So, pumpkin plus carrot, or carrot as a choice, or as something that is actually part of the vegetable and fruit basket. And I'm going to assume that we are creating two groups. One is of veggies, and the other group is for fruits, which is oranges and apples. So let's just say that two groups are there, and we want to search between the two groups. And within each group, we wanted to select at least one out of the two, whereas pumpkin and carrot could be the two types of vegetables. And assuming that one of them has to be selected from group one or group of veggies. In the second one, there's a group of fruits, either orange or apple needs to be selected as a choice with the OR in between, that is differentiating as well as giving an option to find at least one fruit and one vegetable out of the two groups. Okay. So let's call it group A, which is veggies, and this is group B. Okay. So the query expression would be within parentheses. Now, here we are just equating it with the algebraic expression in order to explain it. Don't take it literally as if you are creating the search queries. We are just trying to explain the fact that parentheses don't work within Google queries and the reason why. So let's suppose veggies and fruits are two variables or two groups. And now we're going to break veggies and fruits. And the reason we have used A and D obviously is to indicate that it is one big basket with veggies and fruits, where veggies and fruits are two groups. So pumpkin and carrots, one group, oranges and apple, a second group, and in between an A and D, that is actually breaking this veggies and fruits into further um, of these items that include pumpkin, carrots, and oranges and apples. So you could see that it is very simple expression, except that we have indicated A and D as a Boolean mark, which is a collection of items in both groups. In pumpkin and carrots, and okay. So basically, what we want to do is that we want the search to find, or um, to select either pumpkin or carrot as two variables inside of this, meaning that even though this A and D is indicating what is inside of this group, pumpkin or carrot with OR is asking the search to find or resolve between these two choices to find at least one or find both. Same thing with oranges and apples, replaced by OR to be given the same set of choices. So if we get rid of these parentheses, this is how it should look like pumpkin or carrots and oranges or apple, right? With the conscious knowledge that, parentheses wouldn't make it into group, but rather the equation would turn up like this. So what is the outcome? So let's take the same equation from here and place it here on top as indicated in this arrow and see what's going to happen. What could be the behavioral situation? So first thing that's going to happen is carrot and oranges will attempt to combine together. And then the outcome would be that carrot and oranges will then start to also combine as shown with green arrows and blue arrows, with these two as carrot and oranges as mandatory or as conjoiners, or at least having both of these to be present. And then with the carrot, you could see that we wanted to have a choice between pumpkin or carrot as shown over here. And the outcome would be that carrot will start to combine with orange, will combine with apple. Same way, orange will combine, I'm sorry, the orange on the top will combine with carrot or pumpkin. So the behavior is uncontrolled because now each of these are not only interacting in a more of a selection or a choice on one hand, and on the other hand it is considering carrot and orange as a constant. So therefore this constant would start to combine with variables which is apple and pumpkins right over here. See this? So in order for us to make a better sense out of it and make it more controlled, we'll have to split it into two search queries, whereas pumpkin or carrot as a set of vegetables should be resolved separately as a as as a as a search query, and orange or apple should be another instance of search to come up with the first. And that's just to explain what could be some of the issues by when you're not using parentheses, meaning that we have not done it as if we could go like this. Had we been able to do it as I'm using the parenthesis, the results would be different. But because parentheses are not acknowledged, that's where we get into problem. So basically, between oranges or apple and pumpkin or carrot, these don't get resolved. These don't get resolved. Basically, what will happen is the word carrot and the oranges will combine, and then we'll start to look at the options, which is a secondary action that would be a choice of orange or apple and pumpkin or carrot. So this behavior cannot be controlled, um, and therefore it is recommended that whenever you're using OR as making it into two groups, it is better to run your query separate, where each group should be resolved separately, and then you can actually use the outcome to better get your results. Another way of running the OR command is shown over here, whereas in A we have, let's suppose, veggies as a constant. Within veggies, we wanted to look for either pumpkin or carrot. In the second one, within fruits, we want to look for the word fruit, and choice between oranges or apples. Okay. So we can write it like this, or we can do veggies and fruits as a combination where this can be these two words or combination of these three together, whereas oranges or apple can be a choice. Same way, what is this? Veggies and fruits would be again the same constant, but using it with pumpkin or carrots as a second or as another way of resolving pumpkin or carrot against oranges or apple, but without combining these vegetables and the fruits together. You're going to run these queries separately. Why? Only because the groups, it is not going to group it together. So if you can bring in the next class, you can bring some complex searches or something that uses Boolean or somewhere where you are getting errors in your searches. I'd be happy to do it because it's going to be all hands-on when I meet you day after tomorrow. So we'll do about 8 or 9 examples. And we will also encounter the concepts which would show, first of all, the problem set, um, as we have shown in the situation where we are using A&Ds and ORs or quotation marks, and then to see how we can resolve those issues or overcome them. Meaning that it is just because it is hands-on, there could be so many variations or so many things that you would want to relate to with what we have learned. And then we would have question and answer session, meaning that you know it's not like I'm going to mm, uh, put you up to it for asking questions, but rather take questions from you. So there is no situation of embarrassment of any sorts. And just be very candid and let me know if anything you couldn't understand. I'll be happy to explain. Anything else that I can help you with today on what we have learned so far, or any confusions? It's a lot of info, lot of you know kind of behavioral things that search engine does. Even when we look at how the booleans are supposed to act or react, but they don't, and what is the mind of the search engine, to the best of our knowledge we have tried to cover that. So with this, should I end now and let you all go?
It works for
Anything?
me.
All right, Brett. Okay, and Tristan, I probably would get a chat response. Anything I can answer for you, Tristan, today? If it's all good, then let's call it an evening. Look forward to see you day after, say, which is Wednesday. Okay. Take care now. Have a nice evening or afternoon wherever you are. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.